everyone. Welcome to our Glorious Ashes of Creation November development update. We hope that you all have had a wonderful Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. If not, we hope that you had a great week and weekend. How are you guys doing? I see everyone's got the holiday spirit going. Steven's got creepy stuff.
Oh, I thought you were talking to the stream.
I thought so too. I was like, wait.
Yes, I know exactly what all of your houses look like right now. I'm creeping into them.
Yes, I'm doing much better. I've regained my power as my beard has come back in. I am no longer diminished, so I'm doing good.
Dude, that grew back fast.
Yeah, it did grow back pretty quick. Jeff, I see you have your tree up, and Margaret, I can't tell if that's a green screen or your actual home.
What do you think? It's green screen. But I did a good job of finding like the perfect positioning. But no, people are asking, where's Thomas?
Oh yeah, where is Thomas?
Who's Thomas?
I don't know.
Oh, I see. Oh my God, I see him. He's creeping. He's creeping in the bottom right.
I don't know if you can see him. Oh, they kind of can a little bit. Not too much. All right. Well, we're having a little bit of fun. First and foremost, I'm Margaret Crone. I am your community marketing lead, and with me today is Stephen Sharif, our creative director, as well as Jeffrey Bard, who is our lead game designer. We hope that you all are ready for a lot of action. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. So just to go over all of the things that we will be doing today, we have our quick updates, our studio update from Stephen, our design update, and our environment update, as well as character art. And then we have a little Q&A, which our lovely community manager, Lieutenant Toast, has put together. So thank you all so much for submitting your questions. If your question doesn't get answered, Toast does do a grand job of trying her best to answer as many of them as possible. And I think, Stephen, I'm still coming through your microphone.
Uh-oh. Are you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, a little bit. A smidgen.
It's low for me.
And with that, I'm just going to go through our quick updates real quick. So I was going to switch over to a scene here. We have our November dev discussion coming up, and our November dev discussion just happened, which was about overgearing and aka twinking, and our new one is going to be on boss difficulty, so stay tuned for that. Jeff and his team are going to be really curious to see what y'all have to say about that topic. We've had some interesting discussions about
I'm so sorry.
Wait, now I'm like, is mine muted?
No, I don't know. Oh, I can put it back. Yeah.
There you go. And of course, we do have a lot of internal discussions. So we've kind of talked a little bit about the overgearing and seeing all the feedback that you guys had provided to us. And it was interesting to hear what people internally had to say about that as well. So it definitely gets some heated discussions going on even within our studio. Beyond that, we of course have our Harvest Dawn cosmetic swap over that will be happening on December 2nd, 2020 at 11 a.m. Pacific. And we might have a little teaser today later in the stream about what's going to be in the next set. Because people have been asking how we design these, what's the process, how does this help our team, etc.
Margaret, I just sent you a link.
We'll grab that. And of course, we wanted to extend a huge thank you for your generosity during our Extra Life 2020 charity live stream. We know it's been a difficult year for many folks, and everyone who was able to tune in and those of you who were generous and donated have helped a lot of children. We were able to raise over $88,000 this year. Stephen shaved his beard. We had a dinosaur battle again. We got to pie Stephen in the face. And of course, we have a lovely recap of that, about like 30 minutes of it, because we didn't want to upload the whole thing, but you can watch the whole thing over on our Twitch channel if you would like to, or you can watch like the fun recap. Also, Stephen is a singer. Jeffrey Bard.
Margaret is a singer.
No. Jeffrey Bard, you have some contestant here. Like, Stephen can definitely sing. We're like, what?
No, Margaret blew it away for sure.
No, it was bad.
It's amazing.
No. Yeah, but definitely go check out that stuff. It was a lot of fun for us, and of course, we raised a lot of money. I didn't sleep. It was grand. It was grand. And then, of course, beyond that, we do have our Alpha 1 preview of the Cleric archetype, which has an article that went live over on our news channel. We always post our articles over there, so definitely check that out. And it also covers there's also a video that covers the class as well. So definitely watch that. We know there's a lot of feedback that has been provided to us. There's a lot of feedback that has been provided in the thread, and we're definitely taking all of those things into consideration. We kind of talked about it previously too. There's a lot of discussion in regards to how bright the particle effects were and stuff like that. We wanted to note that, obviously we're in alpha, things will change, as well as animations and things of that sort. So yeah. And then last but not least, we do have our journey to Alpha 1. We've been doing a fun social media thing. If you haven't been part of it, definitely go check it out. We've been taking a little bit of a journey, and you all have kind of shared with us what you would like to do, and it's been really, really exciting. We've gotten up to our chapter 4, which is a little bit of a battle. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see who you think should go first, our cleric, our mage, or our tank. I personally think our tank, because, the first person you want to battle is probably your tank, but we'll see what people say. And we'll get to see where our journey goes, as well as, of course, our Alpha 1 playtest dates we have available to you all. This was posted in our creative director's letter in Q3, I believe. Stephen shared these. So reminder that our next Alpha 1 preview pre-test, the first one will be December 18th, coming up here through December 21st. So right in time for the holiday season. We hope that you'll join us, those who are able to, which is all of our Bravers and Intrepid pack holders. So Braver of Worlds and above and Intrepid pack holders. And you'll be getting an email from us regarding that and all the information. So stay tuned.
That's like what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's not a long ways from now, that's for sure.
It's coming up.
Yeah, sorry we had so many quick updates, but we had a lot going on this month, and of course December's not even it's gonna be here soon. So I'm gonna toss it over to Stephen to talk a little bit about the studio and how the studio's doing.
Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, I noticed a question in chat by Gail. It says, why doesn't the long Alpha 1 test say full wipe? The reason for that is essentially as we continue moving forward past those dates, there might be spot testing that will open up, and we may want to have on that particular Alpha server people at the progression points that they were at in order to test certain things. So we're not definitively saying those will be a full wipe on those Alpha servers. That doesn't mean that it's going to progress into the betas. The betas will for sure have a wipe from alpha. So just to answer that. Yeah, studio update. We are continuing to work from home. We have updated kind of our time frame when we expect to be back in the studio, which is hopefully going to be around, I would say, February of next year. Obviously we're watching the updates with COVID. If you're not in the United States, you'll know that there's, things going on here, and we're trying to get this thing under control, and it is not progressing in the direction that we want it to progress. So with that being said, we're kind of just staying nimble. And oh, do I have music? Oh, yeah. But on the hiring front, we've had a tremendous hiring round that started in the middle of July of this year, and we just kind of finished it. We brought on board, I believe, 23 people in that period of time, which is very good. Our next hiring round, which you guys will be getting messaging about, will be in the middle of probably January. We're probably going to be targeting around 30 new positions at the studio to bring on board during that hiring round. And things are progressing. Right now, the team just has their heads down. We're focusing on the alpha test that's coming up December 18th. There's a lot of excuse me. There's a lot of work to be had still. So we are down and focused on that. But otherwise, there's not really too much else on a studio update front.
All right. I guess with that, we will move on to our design stuff.
Yeah, so like Steven said, we're very hard at work right now trying to get everything buttoned up and ready to go. Obviously, we have a whole new zone, so that's required a lot of population, a lot of new quests, a lot of new creatures, which is pretty neat. You guys will be seeing a lot more variance and sort of the population of our creatures in the world, and some of the stories that are going to be told there. So that's really exciting. We are hard at work doing a big stats revamp, which you won't see in this December test, but hopefully the February one, and for sure the March one. So a big rejiggering of all of our stats and how they work and how they relate to each other, something that will be a lot closer to what our final form of stats will be. So we're trying to button up the last few things on that, and then it'll be implementation time. We're also, I have a small team split out doing some combat prototypes. So they're going to be creating, I feel like we've got a pretty good foundation for our combat, but in terms of like really making it sing and really making it feel like, you know, the core experience that we want from the game, it's not there yet. So this team is there kind of trying to find the final answers there to really bring combat up to sort of the AAA experience that we expect from the game. So they're working on that. You probably won't see too much work from them in this December thing, but you definitely will by that final date. So yeah, it's design has been a lot of fun. We've got a pretty solid big team right now, so it's nice being able to, you know, have different subgroups work on these different systems, and as we get bigger, we'll continue to do that. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's definitely a little bit stressful seeing that we are so close to that December date, but so far so good. Things are doing well. We're on track, so it should be pretty exciting to see what you guys think about it.
Yeah.
And I think we might have some footage we can play in the background, maybe.
Yeah, I'm getting that set up right now. Transitioning. Whew. All right. That's why there was music
We're
playing.
doing it live.
So yeah, we'll play that video in the background. I meant to do it while it was chatting, but I think.
Oh, we can still speak about it, right?
Yeah.
Because so this is the biome that we're working with right now is very tropical, jungly. So you'll see that kind of reflected in the foliage and some of the creatures that you'll be seeing. Here we've got a big war beast, kind of in the distance.
You should be able to hear us. People are saying there's no sound. You should be able to hear us.
Oh, can you hear us talking?
Yeah, there's not supposed to be music.
Testing one.
But you should be able to hear us.
As long as they can hear us talk.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
There's not supposed to be sound on the video. Sorry, guys. There was just music in the video.
Yeah, just to give you guys an idea, what you're seeing here, as Jeff was saying, is one of the new biomes. This is kind of a more tropical-oriented area, but you're also seeing some of the lighting changes as well. This is all obviously in game, so you're seeing a cinematic, camera on these particular shots. But you're getting to see some of the foliage changes. You're seeing some of the lighting differences. Here you can see some little pygmy goblins and their little tribe and shaman that's kind of there waiting to come across any wayward adventures in their lands. I love his mask.
It's so cute. It's so good.
Yeah.
Our animation team does such a good job giving our creatures character. They really kind of can stand on their own and tell their own story just by looking at them.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. And you might have seen a sneak peek of that video when we tweeted some stuff out and put some Facebook things out. So if you're following us on social, you might have seen some screenshots from that, or a screenshot of that or from it, which was pretty amazing. So great job, Tristan, putting that lovely video together.
Yes.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we are excited for Alpha 1. We've got a lot of things going on with that. And one of the other things that people have asked a lot about are like the design process for like the cosmetics and how they interact with the world. And we do have some other questions that are in our Q&A as well. So I'm just going to kind of go over like the process of creating the cosmetics and also answer some frequently asked questions. Like one of the questions that we get a lot is, how does this help the world that we're creating here? And I think one of the things that we constantly tell people is that what these do is these help us create the creatures in the world. They help us create the NPC garb that you're going to see and things like that. You're not going to see the exact ones that we're doing for the cosmetics because those are exclusive to those who help us. But you will see variants of those in the world. Now, those variants are for NPCs. Those variants are for creatures in the world. Those variants will not be attainable by other players. Just to make that very clear, they are exclusive to you. But the variants of them will be in the world, non-attainable. But that's not to say that we won't have things that are similar that you can get of the same like style necessarily. I hope that answered that question because we get that a lot. But yeah, so Jeff sometimes will be like, hey, I'm designing something for a jungle. Maggie, make me some jungle stuff. And I'll be like, okay, cool. But we'll make a different variant of it for the cosmetics, for the monthly cosmetics. So I'm just going to go over kind of the process, and I'm going to use one of the items from the next set, which is December, so you get a teaser of what the next set is, and also we'll just show you all of them as well, since we're very close. They'll be launching on December 2nd, but hopefully this answers your questions, and if you have more in chat, please just let me know. So what I normally do is I send over a presentation to Jeff that is, I'm not going to show you the entire presentation, I'm going to show you like one item example, but I'll send him like my December cosmetic request, and I usually do this like months in advance. We have a tone that we're going for. So for this December's tone, we were going for gritty, cold, and icy. So that was kind of really the tone. And what I like to drive home is with Ryan Richmond, who is our kind of like lead character artist. I always tell him like, go back to that.
Lead concept.
Yeah, concept, sorry. For instance, like when we had the previous set for November, I was like, this needs to be more jovial because it started looking really dark and kind of creepy, like the house and stuff. And I was like, no, this is supposed to be like happy and festive. And so like they kind of brought up the tone and the brightness on the colors. So for the first one, I'm going to kind of show you, that's a little sneak peek. That's not what I meant to do. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. So I usually send over one of these things, and basically this tells you what it's for. It's like an accessory. I know I leaked. It's a frozen gauntlet, and what I like to do is provide what armor slot it's going to be in. So this will be in your hand slot. What armor type it's going to be. So this is a plate. What race influence it is, and this is Renkai. What materials are going to be available. So copper, plate, ice. That's really what like we're going for. And on the right hand side, you can kind of see the color palette that I'm going for all of the cosmetics. You can also see the textures and materials, and I try to provide really good examples of those. And then I kind of give like a little bit of details of what I'm thinking. So for instance, I was like copper colored plate with armored gloves. Plate has intricate designs on it that are engraved in it, encased in like a light blue ice. This ice should be part of the armor, almost like an enchantment. And then the fingernails, area of the gloves should look like a creature of sorts. And kind of I gave you some examples of these as well for them to be able to see what this is like. Now I'm going to show you the process of this, basically all the different stages that this goes through. So the first stage that I got was the left one. It was really very intricate, and I did kind of like it, but I was like, oh, it needs more ice and to kind of differentiate it from what the other one was. So they added more ice, and then we're like, I don't know if that's really going to work for us because it looks too much like the costume, which is not showing up right now. So, give me a moment. Figure out why it's not showing up. Oh man, come on. I tested this before, I promise. Let me grab that quick. Oh, they're like not here for some reason.
We had a lot of OBS bugs today.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with OBS today, but it is not having. I think I got the update and it just kind of like derped out on me. All right, well, maybe I can get Mike to send those over. Yeah, because none of them are showing up here for me.
Weird.
Yay! So yeah. Stephen, why don't we have you talk a little bit about
Yes.
the other part of it, which is the other part of it was we're going to talk a little bit about the diversity in visuals across people's
Absolutely.
choices, and then I will grab those other things and I'll kind of explain more of the process. Sorry that this got
That's
kind of
okay.
got-
Yeah, not a problem. So
Yeah.
basically, through this process, one of the most important things, obviously, is going to be, we have a lot of visual diversity across the cosmetics, across the biomes in the world. All of these things. Really, there's a large portion of diverse elements, and part of the artist's jobs really is to kind of make sure that they're all congruent, that they, all look like they fit together in this world. And that's a really delicate process. It starts really at the conceptual phase, and as it moves into the environment artists or the character artists, they're taking into account the types of materials and textures that need to be used and have to be kind of co-located to a certain regions so that they make sense. Another thing that people brought up in the past is like, hey, there's a lot of different building skins that could potentially be on freeholds, and all of that is taken into account. So I think what you're going to start seeing as we move into the alphas and betas, and these types of different assets come online in these different phases, is you may initially see some some contending looks, but over time that's going to be fleshed out. It's going to be blended better together, and it's going to create not just a rich and diverse universe of possible assets that players can attain, but also that fit together within this world. Now, the objective, obviously, starting at the concept stage and moving forward, is for us to keep the world immersive. So you're not going to see like people wearing jeans and t-shirts and kind of non-immersive assets through
Clubwear.
Exactly, clubwear in the game, as we may have experienced in other MMORPGs. Because while we want to have fun, we also want to make sure that the immersive nature of this world, which is very visually aesthetic, beautiful world, is maintained. And that's kind of the target objective, obviously. So and as Margaret really kind of goes through with Jeff and comes up with these different thematic sets throughout the months, the artists take those sets which are constructed, and as Margaret was saying, they will create alternatives that get introduced through NPCs, that get introduced through enemies you may face. And in addition, there's going to be alternatives that can be achieved in game. These aren't cosmetics that are purchased necessarily, but they can also be achieved in game through kind of rewards and achievements and stuff. And that creates a large, diverse, capable, essentially structure for the world that the artists have access to as they're creating, new assets moving forward in the development of the game. Sorry, was that? Do you want to keep on?
You're good.
I think we have to keep going.
Okay, got it. I will keep going. Jeff,
I've got it almost set up here, and then I can go with
why don't you talk about as design has been essentially populating these 12 different zones that are in the Alpha 1 location, how fun it's been to work with a more diverse set of creatures that you've been throwing in there.
It's real nice. Like it's kind of hard to tell a story sometimes when you've got like 6 different variants of creatures that you've got. We've got a ton now, and it really kind of, amps up the story. We can set up zones to have, a particular population and relationships between the populations that are there that we couldn't really do before. It helps us to kind of establish an identity. This is a rather large tropical area. And what we use some of the creatures for is kind of like establishing character for different parts of this tropical place. So that even though like it's all the same biome, it feels different when you're going from place to place based on what's there, and sort of like how those things are interacting with the environment.
Right.
So,
and to expand on that just a little bit, by the way, guys, from an expectation standpoint, when you're going to start seeing stuff out of Alpha 1, we actually just recently, I think as of like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, switched off of the Alpha 0 Island build from the map perspective, and have started actually now in the testing that we're doing internally, moved over to the full Alpha 1 map, which is about, I think if you include the exterior areas, it's almost 100 square kilometers of
it's real
space.
big.
It's pretty big. So it's intended to be between 1/5 and 1/4 the size of the map, but it's very large. Now, the location we chose for Alpha 1 on the main map is more of an island tropical area. I don't know if we've actually revealed where it is on the main map.
I don't think we have, actually.
Okay. Well, I'll give you a hint. It's in the top left-hand corner area
All of them are
on
gonna be
the
looking.
world map. I know they're all going to be looking in the world map, and we don't actually have. We were hoping to have ships online by December. We will have some ship usage available in the later tests, like February and or March for sure. But in December, we're going to be. Testers will notice that there's going to be some teleport NPCs that are going to be present because there's intended to be a lot of island hopping, and there's not a vehicle to hop with at the moment yet. So at least that's not working reliably. So in December, you're going to see some teleport usage between the different islands and stuff like that.
Try not to get used to it, because it's a temporary fix for the water problem. Once we get ships in, then the teleporters will be pulled
No more
out.
teleporting. Yeah. But we just want to be able for you to be able to test things quickly.
There will be some swimming mounts. You could technically swim, but that would be quite a trek on a mount without a ship. So
yeah, the distances are pretty great. At some point.
How far from one end to the other would it be, you think?
You mean
of this current map that they're going to be able to test on?
In kilometers or in time traveled?
Both. Why not both?
I think it's probably I think it is 10 kilometers. It's 10-kilometer trek across, right? If you're not going diagonally. And then it's that would probably take about, I don't know, if you're moving at a distance
probably
speed
at
of
30
7
minutes.
Yeah, I'd say at least 30 on the mount.
There you go. All right, I can show the thing now. I got it all set up. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, cool.
If you guys are good for that.
Yeah.
So going back to where I was, sorry about that. Obviously, these are the two phases. And this was kind of what I had asked for, but I think as we were looking at it, I ended up thinking that maybe we wanted to, it was too close to what our set looks like. So this is the costume set for this month, and that accessory looked a little bit too much like it. And so I actually was talking with Ryan Richmond, and I was like, I think that maybe this is kind of the direction I'd like to go, is making it more like the creature for the set, which is the pet. And I'll show you the pet. So this is the pet, and I was like, what if like you took the pet's like their arm and made it into like an armor glove? Like how epic that would be. And so we went with that, and we had Dave, who's the concept artist, swap over to that, and that's when we ended up with this. So that's kind of like the process. It goes a little bit back and forth. Sometimes there's a lot more back and forth than other times, but there will be like 2 or 3 different phases of what an item looks like. For instance, I know you guys love the snores, like aka our lovely snail horse-looking thing. And that went through a couple different phases. And actually, I had it more of like a translucent pearlescence kind of color. And Steven popped in and was like, oh, I think it should be like more colorful than that. And so we kind of swapped the color on it. So sometimes it's just a color change. Sometimes it's like a completely different item. Like this looks completely different than the original one. Not to say that we wouldn't make one that's like the original, but the original to me looked too much like the costume set. And I wanted to kind of give it its own look. And of course, we're just going to show you the other ones just because, you know. So the building that we're going to have is this really icy cold building. If we got some Renkai out there, or aspiring Renkai orcs, this will be probably your jam. Or I think this is more Vec than Renkai. More Vec, right?
Yeah, this is Vec.
Yeah, got some Vec folks out there. I was like, actually, this is Vec. And this is the mount. Continuing that icy theme. And one of the other things is that we also have some body types and rigs that I'm working with too. So Chris Atkins and Chris Myers kind of give me all the options I have. They're like, these are the kind of bodies that you can use. So I try not to differentiate too far from those things, so that I'm not putting extra work on them to create new models unless they are like down with it. For instance, like the fox, I had the fox one, I had to be like, 2 tails, is that okay? Because technically we don't have a rig for 2 tails, but they were down with it because they were both like, it's too cool, we need it. And of course the caravan pulled by our lovely,
oh my god, It's a lot of lumber.
Yeah, a lot of lumber. So if you're thinking about being a lumberjack or something of that sort, this is probably a cool skin for you to have on your caravan for sure. Yeah, so that's kind of like the design process. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Jeff, because really me and you go back and
I
forth.
mean, I think you
Not
covered
too
it pretty
much.
well, right? Like it's mainly about establishing theme and making sure that, you know, we haven't repeated ourselves, and you know, that we're always kind of pushing the story forward too.
Yeah.
We sometimes find out some neat things about the story as we're creating these items.
Oh yeah, there's
and
lore.
we can, yeah. So there's always a lot of lore that we go back and forth on, and making sure that, you know, we're staying within established canon and we're not pushing it out too far. But it's really a lot of fun. You find out a lot about the story through these items, especially with where we're at in the process. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like I go, hey, I really want to make like a witch or something like that, and then Jeff will go, hey, but this doesn't, maybe this is kind of what witches are like in our world, and so like I have to kind of create something and design something that's going to fit well with what his vision is as well, as far as like the lore goes as well. So it's like a lot of back and forth, and sometimes, like Jeff was saying, the lore gets created through these things too. So it's a lot of fun going back and forth between those.
Yeah, especially when we're talking about like holidays and stuff, and it's like, okay, what do the people on Vera like? What do they think about this time of year, right? How do they approach it? How do they think about it? So it forces us to like think a lot more about like the cultures of what we're building in a sort of, I don't know, more intimate way than we would otherwise, which is nice.
Yeah, like the Verdant Keeper kind of was created like a couple years ago or a year ago, or I think it's a year ago, when we were talking about what that festivity is going to be like, and you know, we came up with all these little tiny things that the Verdant Keeper does, and what things happen during that fall season and coming into the holidays and things like that. So it definitely kind of fleshes out other things too. So it's, yes, you're helping support the game in a plethora of ways, through lore, through creating the world itself, through these items and these creatures. So it's not going to waste, because a lot of people are like, why are they spending time doing this? So it's like, well, it's not really wasting time. It's all stuff we're going to do anyway.
This is how you build the world.
Yeah.
And this is how people get to be a part of that process. So you know, it goes hand in hand with the transparent development process. You guys getting a look inside, you know, the creation of an MMORPG, and you get to see every step of the way.
Yeah. And of course, if people have questions, they can let us know. We'll be able to easily dye your armor or other colors. And I think we've talked about that before. Some pieces will be dyeable in certain parts. So yeah, we'll have dyeing on certain armor. Some won't, some will. You'll have to.
Yeah. By the way, I noticed everybody saying my lighting looks. I apologize, but for some reason in the December and January timeframe of the year, like the sun just hits the perfect spot in the window that can't like be obstructed, and it burns me. Like I'm like a vampire normally, but this just burns me. So
I was gonna say your lighting's always messed up unless it's nighttime.
I know.
We need to stream during the nighttime. That's like the best time for Steven. Okay, all right. Anything else that you want to add on the design side? We talked a bit about the journey to Alpha 1, things that are going on the design side. We showed off like a cool video of in-game, some footage of that, as well as obviously talking about the process of creating cosmetics, because people have been asking about those. Or not even cosmetics, just items in general. So moving on to environments, if we're cool with that.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. All right. We've got a lot of stuff for environment. So I'm going to move on over to that. So first and foremost, you guys remember that big rock that was in our previous one? Well, now it's in game. And also in the far right, you can see a little tiny gray box ship, and that is the size of your ship. So this kind of gives you the scale of how massive this thing is. So yeah, I think I have a couple images of this. Yeah, and this is kind of like
this is just an example of, you know, how strategically environments are created, right? These level designs, so to speak, to incorporate what we anticipate players are going to encounter, right, as they're here in these areas. So it's likely that based on the node placement around this particular structure, that some type of harbor will be forming if players manage to develop nodes in this area. And those harbor locations will be strategically placed in order to utilize these types of structures. Should there be shipping raids on trade ships? Should there be conflicts? Should there be node sieges? There's now going to be an interesting element of essentially these structures that can inhibit ship movement, that can provide cover, that can do a lot of fun things for the players to kind of take advantage of or utilize. So you're going to see this prevalent across the world, really. But here's one of the examples in this particular alpha area that is going to be a lot of fun, I think, for ships.
Yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, I'm excited for everybody to experience these things in walking around in the world.
Not to mention the gliding opportunities here. If you have gliding mounts, right? Some mounts can glide and you jump off of that thing with your gliding mount. I think that'll be pretty cool too.
Don't jump off of it without it, because you might die.
That's true.
People are gonna like falling damage. Yes, there is
fall damage.
Fall
yes.
damage. And moving on from there, we have some really cool kind of like jungle plants and things of that sort.
Oh, Mia.
Yeah.
She always knocks it out of the park.
And like some of these are like growing on rocks and stuff. It's so sick. And I think I have one in here for scale.
I can't tell
too.
if that's a picture, like a real life picture, or if that's the game.
It's definitely the game, but you can see the little guy, the little person, and the scale of how massive some of these are. So yes, very lovely stuff coming from the wonderful Mia. And of course, we have some Kalar tents. So we have some Kalar things being built. You've probably been seeing a lot of Kalar armor and things like that too. So slowly venturing out. You've been seeing a lot of dwarf stuff lately, but now we're moving on to Kalar and Empyrean things as well. So here are some tents that are being created.
Yeah, and as you're kind of looking at these particular assets, you can go back, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and take a look at some of the, camp assets that we used to use for Kalar and kind of see how the art and assets progress further, right? Like these are much more detailed. And they moved forward with the project, right? And it's pretty, I think, an interesting idea to kind of see progression of the world and how these cultures are continuing to come to life.
Yeah, and especially with our node work that's going in. Actually, I don't know if you guys have talked about how many nodes people are going to experience. Do you want to talk a little bit about that for the alpha?
In this alpha, I think we talked. Didn't we talk about? Or was that the
No.
PI
I think it's
chat?
PI chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's going to be nine nodes throughout this area of space that players will be able to interface with. Now, it is important to note that these node locations will change after Alpha 1. You're really not going to see the definitive node placements until probably the first beta, I would say. And we're okay with that because, while it's beneficial for us to test, at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not really kind of revealing so much to the player base prior to the game launch than we have to, so to speak. And beta, obviously, we have to.
And that's 9 for the Alpha 1 test.
That's 9
April.
for Alpha 1.
April.
That's correct.
April.
Yeah.
Just being clear, not in the December test.
Well, I believe in December there's 9 as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
All right, moving on from there, we also have miscellaneous items. So this one is a kind of a little fireplace. Obviously, our junior brethren have created this wonderful piece. And then got another one, little cooking place.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, all these little.
These are examples of in-housing furniture craftables. Some of these that players are capable of adding to their home, and each of them will have their own, specific benefit that aids in either profession work or just daily adventuring. That as you build up your infrastructure, you'll have access to as a player.
And then, of course, we have a well, beautiful well. And a bathtub, because everybody needs a golden bathtub. I love
Heck
it so
yeah.
much.
The
It's
bathtub's
so cool.
great.
I know. I want this bathtub like IRL.
Like one of the great things that I have, would love to see in a game, and it's really more RPG oriented than so much, MMOs we've experienced, but like let's say you do craft this particular bath, and perhaps as your alchemist profession, you've concocted some special type of soap, right? If you use those if you use those two things in conjunction, maybe you get a buff as a player for a period of time after
A
the
good
bath.
smelling
A
buff.
good smelling buff for
Right,
your
and
your
it unlocks unique shop items with NPCs that you interact with, or gives you different quest opportunities within your organizations and societies. Like these are the things that I think add a flair to the RPG element, the kind of immersive role-playing side of things that are really fun to experiment with.
Everybody's going to be bathing themselves in fountains and stuff like that now. Like maybe I might get a buff if I just go into this fountain. I will warn you, don't go in the water that looks like green and foggy, though. You will die.
It's true.
Yeah, get a charisma modifier. I'm just saying.
You will die. And then, of course, we have some more chests and stuff like that. You've seen quite a few of these. Obviously, we are going to be making a lot of them because you're going to want to put lots of chests in your house to keep all your fat loot. So yeah,
these are just examples of the different ornate types of chests that players will be able to both craft through their furniture side of things and or purchase along with their home, and obviously the different capacity and ornate setting, the ornate nature of the chest will determine its capacity and value.
Or maybe it's a mimic and then it jumps out and eats you.
Oh my gosh. That's ruthless.
And we have one more thing, which is going to be a video. So I'm going to play all this video, and I actually would love for you guys to kind of like talk a little bit about this. Obviously, I know this is more the environment folks, but this video, to pre-emphasize, it is more of like how the lighting process works and things like that. So yeah, we'll show this off. So you'll see in a moment the placement of like where the sun is and things of that sort, and like where it rises, and you can kind of see how it affects the world and the shadows.
Just to put in context, this is not a cinematic camera that you're seeing right now. This is actually footage in editor. So I think this is Devin who is going through and showing the dynamic lighting settings of the world, right? So essentially in previous testing, we've kind of kept that lighting, that time of day static, because, for those of you who don't know, lighting is a very, very important element of really how textures and materials look in an environment. And sometimes when you're still kind of nailing down how that lighting is going to work, it can affect the process of your production artists, your character artists and your environment artists who are creating props for the world, who are creating foliage and trees and armor sets and skin tones, hair. Lighting really touches all of that. So we kind of kept it static in the past because we weren't yet nailed down. We didn't have it as much of a priority to touch the lighting early on, and this has been some of the work done on the dynamic aspect of not just the clouds and the skyline, but also the different times of days that are going to be experienced through the world essentially. And we're not going with a baked lighting aspect, we're going with a dynamic lighting aspect. So it can be a little bit costlier, but at the same time it really adds a type of mood that you would come to expect with the aesthetic that you're seeing here in a game like Ashes of Creation. So yeah,
I thought this would be kind of a cool thing. Obviously I'm trying to continually take you guys behind the scene, but at the same time it has to be something that like Steven approves and that the team is happy with and they want to share. But I thought this was kind of a cool behind the scenes of how like lighting works from the design or for the development side of things. Jeff, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say the way that it lights up the clouds is just phenomenal. I love it.
Especially the sunset time. Like that's so beautiful.
Yeah, who did the work on the clouds? I think that was Brian Gans, I think, was working on the clouds.
Yeah, I think so. Him and Jim were working together on that.
Yeah, we tried early on in APOC to touch the clouds a little bit, and we just found that it was very costly to create these very volumetric, flying through the clouds per se. So we couldn't get away with some of the, more gimmicky kind of presentations when you don't have to fly through the clouds per se. But here I really like the look of these clouds. They kind of they set a good mood, I think, especially in that sunset kind of perspective.
It's beautiful. I want to live there. Let's go on an island vacation. All right, and with that, we are going to swap over to our character art.
Oh, I would like to clear something up. That the Varan planet is not flat. So you may not see a curvature on the horizon in this, but from a lore perspective, the universe in Vera does adhere to some basic physics and laws of physics that we experience in the real world, which means it is not flat. I'm
there's
so
going to
sorry.
be a group of people who are going to name their guild
I know,
Flat
the
Earth
Varan
Vera.
Flat Earth Society, absolutely. No, I anticipate that.
I'm here for it. Do it, our peers. I know you're going to do it. I'm into it. Toast will make sure that they let us know. I love it. Oh, one of the other things that people were asking is, never mind, I forgot what it was going to be. If I remember it, I'll ask again. I try to remember a lot of the things that you guys ask, because you ask a lot of similar questions. Moving on to character here. You've seen the bog brute. It's cool for me because I design these creatures and then I get to see them and they look so cool. Here's the bog brute in creation of him. Look how magical he looks. He's awesome. I always think about this creature when I was designing it. I was thinking about a creature that is under the water, or lives under the water and walks under, and all you see is the top part with little bits of seaweed almost and little mushrooms, and then you're standing on it and he just stands up and you're like, oh, standing on top of this giant thing. But likely it's just going to be a little pet and it will be tiny.
Yeah, we did
You'll
talk
see the
about that.
full-size ones in the world.
Yeah, you'll see full-size examples
They'll
of this
look
kind of
different than this because there'll be a different variant of
Right.
him. But yeah, he's pretty beefy boy. I love it. So cool. And then of course we have a new little guy here, which is our noble warhorn. Showing off little sides of warhorn. I love this face. Look at that. The detail.
Oh yeah.
Wrinkly boy.
Who's working on this? Was this Danny?
I think so. It's one of the newer folks.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks good. I like the detail on the model.
The T-pose makes the tail look really funny. And then our next one is our forest dragon. And I think you've seen this dragon in a more fiery look, almost like a lava dragon vibe. But now you're seeing it in its forest.
Yeah, so the lava one, that was a different dragon model.
Yeah.
So this is more of an elder dragon look. That other dragon had some different types of influences. It had more of a kind of a bat
Bat
kind of
wingy.
look to it.
Yeah.
It had that kind of thin wings, and it also had it where the wings were really used in kind of movement and walking. This, however, is a far more traditional elder dragon look. This is a particularly within a biome of a forest and or jungle type location. I don't know if you have any of the movement slides for him
No,
either.
that's all
Okay,
I
that's
have.
fine. That's fine. Yeah, but he's much
Animation
more
didn't send me
weighted.
anything.
His animations are much more weighted. He's heavier. He's slower. He's a very big boy.
Chris Myers is a perfectionist. I don't think he was ready to share those yet with me. But yeah, this is pretty sick. And then moving from here, we're going to move on to some armor. So first, we're going to be looking at some Kalar cloth. And I think we've shown some versions of these in the past, work in progress, as well as concept art. But now you're seeing them actually here. So there's cloth, and then we have leather.
Now these are, I believe, these are level 10 or 20. I don't know. Jeff, do you know?
I think they're 5 to 15.
5 to 15. Okay. So these are not a part of any cosmetic set. So these are, I think, in-game achievable kind of armor pieces that players can get. And this is the more traditional kind of Kalar influence.
And then we have the Empyrean. I'll switch over to this. So this is the tier 1 set right here. The male and female. And then I have the tier 2, which you can see like definitely gets a little bit of a armor upgrade there.
Yeah, absolutely. These look great. Yeah, the Empyrean influences here. And then you did see in the previous one the kind of cape overflow. We did recently, I think Brian Gans also was working on the capes a little bit and got them back up to speed from where they were in APOC, but for the MMO.
Perfect. And then from there, we've got the turnabout for the Empyrean. You can see it in 3D. And also the lighting. It's so cool. I love how you can like almost see your reflection in other people's armor. So cool.
Now this is level 20, I believe. Is that correct?
This is the tier 2
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have some more Empyrean armor here. Like the tier 1 and then the level up. I think this one's still a work in progress, so
Yeah.
be aware of that.
But you can see kind of the individual pieces here between the chest plate, the wrists, the pauldrons that you have, the belt. These are all obviously created in such a way that players can mix and match as they achieve different armor pieces within the game, and really diversify, I think, the customization options that players have when kind of determining their outfits. Obviously there are set bonuses, and the set bonuses scale with each piece kind of that you add to the set itself. So you can mix and match and get some minor set benefits based on the complement of that particular set you're wearing. So you could potentially see like 3 or 4 set minor bonuses, or you could go full throttle with one set and its maximum bonus benefits. And
there will be a system like a transmog, like we have talked about. I mean, people keep asking, like you will be able to add a cosmetic onto certain pieces. So if an item has a cosmetic slot, you'll be able to put a cosmetic on there. So if you want to make your armor look like a different piece of armor, you can kind of do that to some extent. It depends on what it is.
Yeah, like you can take individual pieces, and some of them will have the ability to transpose the visual appearance of that piece with another piece, or you'll have an overarching visual change, which is a one-piece costume that is potentially you can achieve and or purchase, and that will override the visual appearance of all set pieces.
And then this last one, I don't know if I want to make sure I get Stephen's approval on it, is as the Staff of the Ancients, if you're okay with me sharing that. We have teased a lot of ancient stuff. If you tune into our live stream, there were some goals that were achieved and you guys knocked it out of the water. We reached all of them. And so Stephen showed a little bit of the art of the ancients and talked a bit about it, which is in our recap. So definitely go tune into that if you want to check that out and listen.
So this is just one weapon, by the way. It's not the staff of the ancients per se. It's a staff.
Can I show it?
Yeah, you can show it.
Okay, right. Ooh, it's pretty.
Yeah, so what you kind of see in the staff design, obviously there's an emissive component that reflects kind of that corrupt nature of the ancients, but you'll see that it actually lines through the curvatures of the staff as well. And I had spoken in the past about how souls act as conduits for essence, essentially, which is the energy that's used to manipulate magic, either for good or for evil. But some of the as those conduits can be restructured in a sense, they can be molded, shaped, and changed to have focuses on particular types of magic. And here in the curvature and design of this staff, you'll see that it has a very specific and unique looking type of mold, so to speak. So there could be some relationship between these designs of the staffs and or weapons that you'll see, which are used to harness and focus the use of the essence or magic, and how perhaps those structures relate to the types of magic that those creatures are using.
All right. And with that, we are onto our Q&A. So our first question is going to be from Neurotoxin and Katak. We had two people who asked this, which is about overgearing. Based on the recent dev discussions regarding overgearing, what are the team's current thoughts on gear use, access, and constraints?
I think we're going relatively traditional in the gear access points by kind of being driven by level tier that players will have access to. So as you advance in your adventuring class, you will begin to unlock the ability to equip gear of a higher level. I don't know, Jeff, you want to expand on that at all?
No, I mean, that's the plan currently. There's a lot of discussions we've had back and forth in terms of how we want to manage player power, and so that's sort of where we've landed right now. It's a easy way to throttle and set expectations for what a given character's power level can be at a given level. Obviously, I think all of us love overgearing. I think it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of games that have done it really well. But with the number of levers that we already have on this game, we kind of wanted to make it easier on ourselves in order to help create like power level expectations for a given character, and sort of have mins and maxes that we can balance around. So that's where we are right now. Now that doesn't mean that won't change later on down the road, but that's kind of where the team is at.
And our next question is from Saksky and Logan from the forums as well, and this is about cosmetics. Could you please elaborate on the philosophy behind why a cosmetic skin can only be applied to one character at a time?
Yeah, absolutely. So cosmetics, when we're talking about purchasable cosmetics, really the idea there is the meaning of those cosmetics in some way is augmented by its exclusivity. And that exclusivity translates not only in sometimes a limited quantity and or limited time frame, but also in limited application as well. We want to make sure that because we're a non-box purchase game, meaning there's no box price to play Ashes of Creation, it is only a subscription. That's beneficial because it reduces the barrier of entry, and we want a high population, obviously. But at the same time, one of the ways we augment the revenue flow to sustain constant updates and new chapter releases and additional content within the game is through a cosmetic only marketplace. That means absolutely no pay to win whatsoever, and that will be adhered to forever. But kind of providing these limited options that a lot of collectors out there like when it comes to achieving and or purchasing cosmetics. It means something, I think, when players make that decision to either purchase or they go through the rigorous portion of achieving those things in game, that it is not just everywhere around them and becomes meaningless at that point. I guess the question is,
you also need to have an item before you can put these cosmetics on it. So like you can't just put this cool looking armor on like a level 1 armor. Like you'll have to attain the same level armor. And we'll have more details about like what those are as we get further along too.
So the costumes, actually, just to be clear, the costumes don't really have a level restriction on them. You could apply them to lower level armor. Transmogs, there will be specific rules when it comes to taking different armor pieces and applying those visuals to certain armors. And the same is true for, let's say, mount skins. Mount skins do require, yes, there to be a specific type of mount achieved. But yeah, I hope that gives a little bit of explanation.
Cool. Did you have anything to add to that, Jeff? You had like a thinky
Nope.
face for a moment.
Nope. I was thinking, and then Steven answered what I was going to say. So
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I might have given a little bit of not context there with my answer. Jalon wants to know.
And actually,
sorry, go ahead.
let me just add that too. One last thing.
Sorry, Jalon.
Sorry. Is it true that as a company, we could make more money if we did not have limited time cosmetics, and those cosmetics could be purchased at any point going forward? Absolutely. From a pure business standpoint, we could. But I'm a collector at heart. And in games I've played in the past, I have been
just looking at your creepy dolls behind you.
Oh, what?
Your collection of creepy dolls.
Yeah, exactly. Those are John's collection. Sorry. I have been duped in the past, right? I've told this story in the past. There was this one game I played, and there was this bear skin, and I really wanted the bear mount to because I had like 2 or 3 other types of bears, and this was I'd never seen this bear before, and I was like, ooh, I want that bear. And they only gave it through boxes. You had to buy a bunch of boxes, and they were like, I don't know, like $10 a box or something. And I think I had spent like $400 and I didn't get the frickin' bear. And I was I don't know how much I spent. I spent a lot of money on it. And they released the bear again, like 2 months later on the marketplace. You could just buy the bear directly for like $20. I was so mad. I was so angry. I don't know if I quit at that point. No, I quit when they introduced something else. Sorry. But I was so pissed. So one thing that, yes, it's true. We could make more revenue as a company from a business decision standpoint if we continued to sell cosmetics that we create later on and stuff, but we're not going to do that. And because the reason we're not going to do that is because from a collector's spirit, you want exclusivity and limited aspects of these things, because it's cool to know that, there's a downside to it too, because if you didn't find out about the game until months later, yeah, you're SOL. But at the same time, like, you want that type of integrity in the company that's providing this game, because you know that when future stuff comes out, you will be safeguarded from what I had to go through in another game.
It's the same thing with sales and knowing like when to put them up. Like if you sell something full price the first week and then like you're like on sale the next week, the people who bought it the week before are going to be upset, right? Like it's. Yeah. There's a lot of companies that will be really cheesy, and it feels gross as a player.
I will say, however, that experience I had with the cosmetic thing, that wasn't the worst experience of a company. The worst experience I had was when
Steven's just dishing it. Do we need some tea?
I'm not even gonna get into it. I'm not even gonna get into it. I'm not gonna get into it.
No.
Sorry, go to the next one.
You can if you want.
Nope. What was Jalon's question?
All right, Jalon. The question is loot rules. Can you share more details on loot rules, such as why there is no free-for-all looting and how need before greed will work if any class can use any weapon and armor?
There will be free-for-all looting.
Yeah.
By free-for-all, you mean essentially on pickup, whoever picks it up. Yeah, that's an option. Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, the loot rules. If you're talking about previous alphas that you may have played, yeah, we didn't have those set up, but they should be coming online here. If not this one, then
I don't think it's definitely not December. I
know
actually
Engineer has been working on them, but I don't think they're ready for prime
I think
time,
I deprioritized that for December. I think that's
see.
going to be either February or March. Yes, but the idea behind loot mechanics is to have as wide a range as you've probably ever experienced in MMOs previously. So we're either going to be at that level or wider. But the idea is for there to be a lot of administrative function that's delegated to either the party leader or I think there's even going to be a by vote option, or the raid leader, and you can determine those looting rules.
They really want to know, Steven. They really want to know what your
oh
worst
my gosh.
experience
I think
was.
I've told this in the story in the past, but okay. I will do it real quick. There was a shop in this game that I played, and there was a particular resource that was in the game that players had to harvest through normal means of acquiring, seeds to, plant trees, and these trees could be converted over to a particular type of tree that was like the base resource mechanic for progression within these tractors and vehicles and whatnot. And people built their entire economy in the game, and it was a player driven economy. They built their entire economy in the game around being able to, capitalize on the low chance of these trees becoming this particular resource. And the company, I guess, needed money or wanted money or whatever, and they decided to introduce a particular type of tree through the cash shop that had like a 60%, that had like a 60 or 70% chance of additional procking into this particular resource. And it's just, I'm sure it made a lot of money for them, but it completely destabilized the economy. And whenever you destabilize an economy, you lose your player base. And when you lose your player base, it's just a compounded issue because it's a highly guild driven game. When friends leave the game, other friends lose interest in playing the game. And it's just a cascading effect of failure that can occur. Now, the game was already super pay to win, whatever. You kind of had to pay to win in order to become relevant in the game. But it was just the final straw, I think, in the back of letting players progress for a year or 2 years in a particular economic point of the game, and then introducing something through the cash shop that was instrumental within the game. And it was just such a terrible decision. I don't know. But anyways.
And obviously on our end, as developers, being able to drive our own product, we don't want players to experience that. So we have vowed that we won't have play to win or pay to win. You have to play to win.
Correct. You have to play.
You have to play.
Yeah.
Play to
win. Just a little heart to heart there. Our next question here is from McShave and Dark Furia, who wants to know and this is about gear stats. Will certain combat stats be tied to specific gear? Example, agility only on leather, or will all gear have a chance to have all stats?
I think all gear will have an opportunity to have all stats and or certain types of influences. Sorry,
crafters will be able to rejigger stat blocks, and there'll be a couple of other ways to kind of move things around to kind of create both the look and the stat block that you're looking for. It's not always going to be easy. There'll be a lot of challenges involved with that, but yeah, the goal is to give you guys the option to customize your gear the way you want them to.
Right. And remember, the whole reasoning behind that is because from a player agency and customization standpoint, you're not particularly restricted to any type of gear for your archetype choice or your class choice through the secondary choices you make. And the purpose of the class system is to allow you to kind of flirt with those traditional Trinity roles. And as such, you are going to have an opportunity based on the circumstances of the encounter you're facing to want to have either plate or leather or cloth gear. So we want to make sure that part of that decision is placed in the crafter's hands, and then there's very little restrictions on those types of set bonuses and or ancillary bonuses.
And our next question is from Gunman Dude 2. I like that name. Node relations.
Send nodes?
This is about node relations. Oh my goodness. What are some of the ways that players of different nodes can wage indirect war against each other, perhaps based on their node type? Example, military node sending raid parties, and an economic node disrupting trade. The chat is killing me right now.
I missed the first part of that question.
The first part of the question was, what are some of the ways that players of different nodes can wage indirect war against each other?
I see. I mean, I think we are a non-faction based, open world, flagging based system type of PvP. There's opportunities with caravans to interrupt trade in and out of a city. There's opportunities for citizens to kind of come together and stop certain achievements, like downing of a raid boss, trying to interrupt citizens of a separate node. I think there's a lot of ways in which players can utilize the mechanics existing within Ashes of Creation to influence change without the hard necessity of a declaration of war per se. The declaration of war is obviously a natural progression of those efforts, and it's likely that if your intent is to, you know, restrict progression for a group of people, whether that be guild dependent, node dependent, race dependent, whatever, there's opportunities for you to start at a point and escalate. It doesn't always have to start at war. And I think, players will have a fun time exploring what those mechanics are.
And Tyrenter wants to know, and this is about flagging, will players have the option to manually flag themselves as combatant status without attacking or AoEing anyone first, should they choose?
No. So the flagging system
what?
is no. So you can. I'm sorry. Let me clarify. There's
Just
two
like
components
what?
to the. I know. I think so. So you can create a way where you allow yourself to attack an opponent, but the actual purple flag doesn't occur until you strike an opponent. We have a way that we toggle PvP through GM command in the current server environment, where we can turn everyone purple. But technically, the flagging component is you're allowing your character to strike another character. Otherwise, like if I targeted you and I did not activate my force attack command, I couldn't attack you, right? But I have to press Control F, or I have to hold Control or Alt when I attack, and then that will allow me to attack you, and that turns me purple when I do attack you, right?
I thought that you could flag yourself and set yourself as being a combatant
Control
and just
F.
live there, right? Like I thought
Right.
that was
No. So okay, got it. Yeah. So this is my inspiration for the flagging system is kind of comes a lot from what my experience in Lineage 2. And the idea here is that you must attack the opponent in order to flag.
So everybody is a non-combatant by default.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And the idea there is, and the reason for that is, there's a benefit and a downside to flagging first. The benefit of flagging first is that you have landed a strike on an opponent. In some way, shape, or form, that strike is going to likely damage them to a degree. But the downside is that anybody else around you now is carte blanche on destroying you without any penalties, right? So you're opening yourself up to attack per se. The other downside of that is you are not, unless you're in a party or a raid with the opponent you're attacking, in which case you then couldn't attack them, but you will not see their hit point value. So there's a little bit of a risk if you're, attacking an individual, that you could kill them with the attack as well. And if you did kill them with the attack and they were a non-combatant, you would gain corruption, and nobody wants to gain corruption because corruption is a severely debilitating status for a player. So yeah.
Okay, and then Sarah was saying, our Lieutenant Toast, our community manager, was saying that some people were asking for a follow-up on the need before greed part of looting and how it will work in regards to if all weapons and armor are able to be used by all classes. How does the need before greed system work, since anyone could claim need?
So if people are claiming need and they don't actually need it, it's going to be up to the party to kind of adjudicate that situation and be like, hey, stop rolling on this item as
Stop
a
rolling
need.
on everything.
Yeah, stop rolling at everything. And if you don't, you can find a group elsewhere, or we're not going to invite you to future parties. There's obviously downsides and upsides to any type of loot protocol that the party's going to choose. And it's just going to be on the party to kind of to go through that.
Yeah, we're not saying any given piece of gear belongs to any given class, right? Gear will make sense more with certain builds of the class, as opposed to, all rangers get dex gear, right? There will be other situations where that ranger might want different types of gear. They might want strength, they might want wisdom. There's a whole lot of stuff that might work for their particular build. So
Right. And I just want to go back for 1 second to the flagging discussion.
Mhm.
I noticed a lot of people in here saying Lineage 2 had the best flagging system. I agree, actually. For a non-faction based game, I do believe Lineage 2 had the best flagging system of any MMORPG I've ever played. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. There were some downsides, and I believe I've addressed those downsides in our flagging system when it comes to not allowing for PK alts or griefers in the kind of way that we saw them in Lineage 2 at least. But I believe that the system, PvP is intended to exist within formal systems. That be the caravan system, the castle siege, the node siege, the guild wars, the node wars. Those systems don't use the flagging system. They all use instead an organized event system, which turns you into an attacker or a defender, and you have other attackers or defenders, and you do not receive the same type of death penalties that you would normally receive through the flagging system. The flagging system is intended to provide a way by which players can exercise their agency in the open world outside of those events in a non-normal environment. So like, I have beef with this person, we're not in a guild or we don't have a guild war, but they're mining some unique ore and I'm going to take advantage of the situation. I'll take the risk. I'll get the corruption, whatever, my emotional investment level is so high that I don't care about the problem side of that thing. But generally, corruption is a deterrent to griefing. Corruption will be a deterrent to people PKing because they're not going to want to take those added death penalties. They're not going to want to take a risk of losing completed gear and items. The idea is to present risk versus reward in the open world, and that's what this type of system provides.
Right. We have about 4 more questions to go through here before we wrap things up. I know it's been a long Q&A, but we have, we're trying to make sure that we're thorough with these. Our next question is from Draxus, who wants to know about music. Do you plan to support the ability for players to make custom music in-game, like the music macro language?
We have talked about it.
Yeah, we have talked about it.
But scope-wise, I don't know if that's in the cards for
maybe an expansion for bards later.
Yeah, possibly. It's very cool. Like it's I think we could do some really fun things with it, but it's a lot of engineering time and design work to get a system like that feeling really good.
Right. And our next question is from Akatosh about raids, and they want to know, with open world raids, how do you plan to prevent groups of larger than 40 players from trivializing the difficulty?
So there's going to be opportunities in the open world, obviously, where a larger portion of players can come together and try to complete content. Now, in the creation of these encounters, if we're talking about world bosses, there's going to be a large amount of environmental hazards, AoE effects, and the more players that are present, there's an opportunity there where the amount of damage taken significantly goes up, and it becomes what you'd think would be easier to accomplish with a large amount of players might be harder, might be more difficult to manage that number of damage being taken by a significant portion of people. But ultimately, that's one of the downsides of an open world MMORPG is there is opportunities for large amounts of players to come together outside of what the typical encounter expectation is. There's some scalability that can be had in that respect. You can activate based off of the number of player characters within the boss room or something. You can activate additional environmental hazards, additional AoE usages. You can incorporate that into the behavior tree of the monster. All of those types of things. We're not really decided per se on what route we're going to take, at least on the scalability side. I know we had a question that was posed to the community, I don't know, a few months ago on scalability in that regard. But it's something that we're going to test in alphas and betas. When we want to confine an encounter to a particular number of players, that's when it goes instanced for the most part. And that's where, whether that be an overarching encounter of the primary narrative, or we want to contain because the, loot drops are special in some regard, that's when we'll likely use that 80-20 rule on instancing versus non-instancing, and we can control the player count. But generally, I would say, where I lean in, and Jeff, I don't know, you can probably jump in here as well, but where I lean in is that I'm okay increasing the environmental hazards and the use of AoE effects when we have a player count that exceeds what the intended encounter design is for. And I think that's a safe way of scaling up without making it feel like you're not immersed in this world and the AI is responding to you. You know what I mean? I don't like that artificial feeling of like, hey, I never progress because I'm always facing the same difficulty level versus a monster. I hate that type of scalability personally. I think that's not fun and I don't like it in games. But if it were like, oh, this monster is like freaked out because there's a raid of 40 people, and now the monster's like super freaked out because there's 120 people and it's like using AoEs all over the place, like I'm okay with that. Jeff, what do you think?
No, I totally agree. Like that's basically how we're approaching these kind of big group open world kind of bosses is, abilities and behaviors that not punish, and I want to say punish, but that respond or make more difficult the more numbers that you brought to that fight, right? There's a lot of different things that you can do where, 40 people, it's of a certain difficulty, and 60 people, it's more difficult. And you can do that without relying on stat buffs or HP buffs or things of that nature. You just make it more difficult to have that many people, and you can do that with the environment. You can do that with abilities. You can do that with behaviors. So there's a lot of things that you can do on that side of things to increase the difficulty without just making it a damage sponge. And that's more interesting gameplay too. Like that's a thing that we want people to be thinking about when they're fighting these open world creatures are going to be big. They're going to be terrifying, and they're gonna hopefully require a lot of skill to take down. And so part of that calculus is going to be how many people do we bring to this fight.
And I think there were some questions in follow-up to that in regards to the solo player. And obviously those players who are trying to play, do you think there's going to be things for them to do? Or because I think there's concern that they might get overrun by like groups or large raids and things of that sort.
Solo
how you guys
players
are handling that, yeah.
No, I think from a content path standpoint, there is content that's being developed for both group play and raid play and also solo play. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to recognize that we're building an MMO RPG, which is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. There are plenty of great single-player RPGs out there. And I don't want to discourage more solo-oriented players from playing Ashes of Creation. I think they're going to have a great time. And there'll be a lot of content for them to kind of explore single-handedly. But at some point, you have to understand the game is designed around massive amounts of players, which means that you're going to have to interact either on an economic level with kind of procuring, assets for your profession and or crafting if you're interested in that. You're going to have to purchase things from players and get housing and, craft in that way. There's going to be group monsters that you're going to want to complete based off of like quest lines. There's going to be raids that you'll probably want to participate in. And because we're a non-faction based game, we're incorporating many what we call pseudo factions that get you involved in some way, shape, or form with a community. It doesn't have to be a community that you're super strongly bonded with per se, and we can leave that kind of to the player agency to determine. But you're going to have a node citizen chat. You're going to have a organization, Scholars Academy chat. You're going to, depending which one you choose, you're going to have a religion, temple chat. These are like micro communities within the grand community that exist that give you an opportunity to form friendships, form bonds, form whatever you want to do. And you can work with those people to complete some of the group and or non-solo content. But in the same way that we're providing solo content for solo players, we are an MMORPG, and there's going to need to be some interaction with a community in order to achieve some of the content. And that we're being open and upfront about that. We are not trying to make a game for everyone. In my opinion, when games do that, they fail. So what we want to do is we want to have a very clear and concise image of what we're trying to create. We are laying out our goals and design, mentality here openly for the players, and we accept that that's not going to be a game that everyone wants, and that's okay.
And I love the idea that some of these communities are going to be built almost around necessity, right? Like there might be something going on with your religion and now you have to band together to be able to complete something. And I think that that's really quite amazing and cool. Or like maybe not everybody agrees, and so you have like this resource that's going back and forth until the last moment, and then that's turns the tide of what happens in the end. I think it's really a lot on your shoulders to make what happens in the world, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, a big part of it is like, the way what Steven was talking about is like the idea of like soft guilds where you haven't like explicitly joined up. You're not, it's not organized by players, but it's like, hey, I care about my node. These people are also part of my node. There's a thing happening to
Or
that
even if you
node
don't care
that
about the people
puts
in the
us
node, you just care
at
about your
stake.
house.
Right, exactly. So like you still have, skin in the game, even if you're a pretty solo player, to help protect the node and help keep the node healthy. And that's the same for organizations and religions. And there's a lot of stuff that interacts that same way. So we try to make it as easy as possible to join the community and to keep as much friction away from that so that you just kind of naturally become a part of the community, whether you kind of like it or not.
Right. And speaking of friction, real quick,
Uh-oh.
part of what unites people is a common enemy, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
That enemy can be event driven and NPC based, right? Or common goal, exactly. That enemy can be event driven or NPC based, like dragon coming out of the mountain to destroy your city's stables and barracks and whatever. And you unite with people, and through that uniting, you can form bonds and friendship, right? Or it can be a hostile player. So yeah.
You get
Sorry.
like a nemesis.
Friction is also soft friction is also a necessity in a non-faction based game, and that soft friction helps to create essentially sides. And I don't like two-sided servers personally. It feels like every time I've ever played an MMO, it usually, especially if it has PvP in it, servers devolve into two-sided nature. But hopefully the way that we limit citizenship to nodes to a degree, right, and how those nodes are in competition with one another and benefit the players to a degree, that will help to further promote many sides. And many sides, I think, is a much more fun and dynamic type of thing.
Yeah. And our next question, we'll get to it, is from Skerns, and they want to know about pet gear. Will summoners summons also have gear available, or only combat pets?
Only combat pets. Summoners who summon their pets, so to speak, or actually I would call them summons if we get the nomenclature down correctly. Summons I would refer to as summoner pets, so to speak. I would call them pets, and I'd refer to pets as something that is a inventory item that you can, well, not even cosmetic, but an inventory item that you can that you can bring with you, and you're not a summoner. Mm-hmm. No, armor and weapons, equipables, those are not on summons. Those are not on summoners. So those are only for battle pets.
And our final question here is from Emberstone. Our final question here is from Emberstone about mules. Will my party members be able to deposit items directly into my mule's bag? I guess that would be like.
That's a good question. That's a good question. I do not know the answer to that yet. I'd have to. I don't know if that's the case. I think probably not. I think the way we would want to do that is we would have a player-to-player trade available, and then from there, the owning mule can, the owning player can deposit on their pet.
Okay. Well, cool. And I think with that, we have our. We made it.